light. Shadows creep and crawl with every scream. Hear the echoes call. Synths and guitars in a haunting blend. An 80s vibe where the terror transcends. Shocktoberfest, scream until dawn. In your nightmares, the terror's reborn. Lights flash, monsters take flight. Embrace the darkness, it's a metal night.
Hello again, everybody. Wild Man Wes here, and welcome to day 22 of Shocktoberfest 80s Rewind. We have now moved on to the year 1987. 1987 had quite a number of fairly decent horror films. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors happened to be one of them, Creepshow 2, and a slew of other ones. But we're not going to talk about those today. Obviously, we've already reviewed those. We're going to talk about 1987's My Best Friend is a Vampire. This movie is about a young grocery store clerk named Jeremy who is down on his luck. He has this crush on a nerdy girl named Darla, and he's a tuba player, which I think is kind of cool in a way because I played tuba growing up in high school, but I digress. Jeremy is down on his luck because he feels like he's just being avoided by all the girls around town. And his best friend Ralph decides, hey, we gotta get you a girl, we gotta get you a woman, something like that, because to get his mind off of all this stress and depression. Well, Jeremy gets a call from a customer to send some groceries over to their house. When Jeremy goes there, he meets a woman named Nora who is absolutely gorgeous and flirting with him a little bit. After he gives her her groceries and leaves, he starts having dreams about her. And it turns out that Nora is a vampire, and she bites him, and eventually he starts to have some tendencies of becoming a vampire, or at least a half-vampire. He can be outside, but he's going pale. He wears sunglasses, drinking blood out of a raw piece of meat, especially when he throws things in the blender to make a blood smoothie. Then, eventually, Jeremy is introduced to a man named Modoc, who is a full-on vampire who wants to teach him the ways of how to become a vampire. And while Jeremy's being trained on the ways to become a vampire, we have a professor and his little lackey that are vampire hunters trying to track down all the vampires in town. And at one point, they don't realize that Jeremy is the half-vampire. They think his best friend Ralph is the vampire. So there's this chasing, stalking awkwardness, and where anything can go wrong, will go wrong. They get busted a couple times, and near the end, there's the big fight scene where the professor and his lackey are trying to take over Jeremy and the vampires, and Nora and Modoc summon the other vampires to turn the professor into a vampire himself. They take the professor away, and I did forget to mention a lot of things because this movie's one of those, it's definitely worth a one watch. Jeremy and Darla do meet up a little bit, and they start to blossom at least a form of a friendship. And at the end, Jeremy decides, even though he's a half-vampire, he wants to stay with Darla, while Nora goes with Modoc to the realm of the darkness known as I'm phoning this one in, folks. I'm just gonna be very blatantly honest with you. I'm gonna talk about what I like and what I don't like about this film. We're gonna start off with what I like. We have a fairly decent cast with a lot of who's who names, especially at the time that this movie was made. Some of the names, they had some prominent careers. Renee Obgeneris, the original Father Mulcahy from the film version of MASH, as well as the talking skeleton in the animated film The Last Unicorn, and also part of the Star Trek franchise. We also have David Werner from The Omen, from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze, Waxwork, and many, many, many more films. We also have Kathy Bates. Yes, Annie Wilkes from Misery has a small part in this film as well. So seeing those names in the cast made me go, oh, this is actually going to be somewhat funny and somewhat interesting. And they do a very decent job with their performances. However, now we get to move into what I don't like. we've talked about this before. We talked about it again. I'm back on my soapbox when it comes to the difference between an homage or a nod or a complete blatant clone. This movie is nothing more than a clone of Once Bitten starring Jim Carrey. Once Bitten came out in 1985, and we've already reviewed that film. And literally, a lot of the scenes where Jeremy is starting to turn into a vampire with the putting on the shades, slicking back his hair, dressing all in black, the whole blood meat smoothie that he makes, it's literally almost frame for frame of Once Bitten. This movie literally is almost frame for frame. There are some differences, especially when it comes to the vampire hunter professor and his crony. And also the whole concept of when Jeremy is starting to become a vampire and meets Darla, and they start to get to know each other, and they go on a date and meet the parents. That didn't happen in Once Bitten, so in a way, they did try to make it their own, but man, you can only make it your own so much if you're only using 25% that isn't part of Once Bitten. Oof. This is difficult, folks. I am very much on the verge of the grade. If it weren't for Renee Abgeneris, David Warner, and Kathy Bates, and also the performances of this movie, this would fail. But I'm going to be lenient because they did try to do something slightly different. And as I mentioned, with some of these cast members, I have a deep respect and love for. My Best Friend is a Vampire is getting a D-, and man, this was difficult for me. My Best Friend is a Vampire. It's funny to a degree, but at the same time, if you've seen Once Bitten, you already know the premise of this one. And it'll be worth a once watch, but rewatchability, hard to say. Well, we hope you at least appreciated the fact that I tried not to phone this one in too bad. But if you've seen this movie and you agree with me, leave a thumbs up. And if not, there's a comment section below. If there's certain things you really appreciate about this film, drop that comment. I'd like to know. Other than that, make sure you share on social media, but most importantly, push that little red button and ring the bell for instant notifications. Until then, I'm Wildman Wes, and we will see you next time for day 23 of Shocktoberfest 80s Rewind. Take care, and as always, stay scared, kiddies.